Here in Virginia, around 70% of the landscape is forested. So that landscape is connected with the broader forest industry, right? It accounts for $21 billion of economic output and about 100,000 or more employees across the state connected with forestry. So here at Virginia Tech, we position our students to look at forestry across the board so you get a holistic perspective.
With Blacksburg being surrounded by national forest, most of the time it's 15-20 minutes and we're out into the middle of the Jefferson National Forest, and whether we're taking forest measurements or identifying trees or analyzing how we build roads for a logging operation, just being able to utilize the land that we have around us, I think is very important, but it's also just one of the special things about being a student in forestry at Virginia Tech.
Forests are an incredibly important resource. Wildlife need them for habitats. It stores carbon and even protects soils from erosion. And we use timber for fiber and even fuel. And so in this major, you'll learn how to manage forests sustainably.
Well, the forestry major at Virginia Tech is really unique in that it provides opportunities across a broad spectrum. So we have forest resource management, forest operations and business, in urban and community forestry. Students in all three specializations take a common set of foundational fundamental courses. From there, their curriculum spreads out into their specializations.
Forestry is a sustainable business because to have trees for the future, those trees need to be either thinned out or completely clear-cut harvested to not only make forest products but reforest that land. So it's good for the environment because trees are constantly on it, and it's also some sort of income for landowners as well.
In this major, you get to take classes like fire ecology, dendrology, GIS, timber harvest, soil classes, and even real estate classes too. So with this education, you get an interdisciplinary understanding of all the components that go in forestry.
Well, what's really special about the curriculum is that it has the Society of American Foresters accreditation. What that translates into is better success in job placement.
Here at Virginia Tech, whether it's integration on teaching with some state foresters and those connections, whether it's guest speakers from industry, or whether it's going on field visits and field sites, we're preparing you for any number of careers. At the end of the day, we offer you an education, but what you do with that is up to you. There's so many different pathways, transferable skills within forestry. It's what you make it, and there's an awful lot of opportunity.